Woowon has spent his entire life repaying debts with his mother as a result of his father's irrational business investments and gambling. Seo An has spent his entire life trying to appease his wealthy family only to be ridiculed over the smallest mistakes, leaving him with panic attacks and social phobia. An unexpected series of kindness led these two to meet. Will they solve their problems together, or perhaps they don't need solutions, but simply each other? In the midst of this vibrant city, Seo An found himself seated in the luxurious confines of his black car. Despite the vibrant morning outside, his world felt shrouded in shadows. He still struggles when dealing with his father. His mind was a rough sea of self-doubt, desperately seeking comfort and reassurance. His fingers clung to Woowon's bracelet, its delicate charm serving as a fragile beacon of hope in his turbulent existence. The memories of the previous night danced gracefully in Seo An's mind. He remembered that he had been gently woken up from his slumber by a tender touch on his shoulder. As his eyes fluttered open, he was greeted by the sight of Woowon's presence. "You should consider yourself lucky, whelp. Knowing last time, I bet you do." Seo An couldn't help but express his surprise, questioning whether he had really slept this whole time. Woowon only confirmed his belief. A warm smile graced Woowon's face as he observed the weariness that must have burdened Seo. Seo An asked if Woowon was feeling any better. Woowon answered that it was clear that the care and concern he had received, the medicine and ample sleep, had contributed to his current demeanor. Seo An points out that he's easily convinced by this answer. Either way, the realization washed over him that the evening had deepened, the late hours softly reminding him that it was time to return home. Just as Seo An prepared to depart, a sweet sound filled the air, Woowon's voice calling out his name. Curiosity beckoned Seo An to turn around, his gaze meeting the radiant smile of Woowon. Woowon thanked him for that day. The mere thought of Woowon had a magnetic pull on Seo An's heart, compelling him to reach for his phone instinctively. In those contemplative moments, Seo An found comfort in the knowledge that reaching out to Woowon would bring him out of his overthinking. The bracelet was not enough. After successfully delivering a pizza to a building, Woowon made his way down, likely heading to his next destination. Just then, his phone rang unexpectedly, catching him off guard. He glanced at the screen and noticed Seo An's name displayed as the caller. Unsure of what to do, he found himself in a moment of hesitation. "Answer him, Woowon. He's been thinking of you." A faint blush appeared on Woowon's cheeks as he gazed at the screen. Conflicting emotions swirled within him, torn between his desire to answer and his inner struggle to protect his heart. He seems to still be battling with himself since last night. He didn't want to entertain his feelings for Seo An, but he couldn't deny wanting to talk to him. Woowon picked up the phone and answered the call from Seo An. As the conversation began, Seo An's first question was whether Woowon was busy at the moment. Woowon replied that he wasn't busy and asked if there was anything he could help with. A brief silence followed, making the atmosphere a bit tense. Then, Seo An spoke again, reminding Woowon of his promise that if Seo An needed anything from him, Seo An should reach out. Woowon reassured him that he remembered. Seo An then asked if Woowon was available later that evening. Woowon double-checked if Seo An meant tonight, noticing a change in Seo An's tone that didn't feel quite right. However, before he could ponder further, Seo An abruptly changed his mind, asking Woowon to make time for him another day, and ended the call. After the conversation ended, Woowon stared at his phone, a sense of unease settling in. This is bad. Why is Seo An suddenly withdrawing? As the night settled in and Woowon's shift at the pizza place came to an end, he prepared to leave the premises. However, just as he was about to step out, a familiar voice called his name. It was a woman, slightly older than his colleagues, who wanted to check on him since he was recently sick. Woowon assured her that he was fine after taking some rest and apologized for missing work. The woman, displaying understanding and empathy, kindly told him not to be too hard on himself, acknowledged that it's been hard for him lately, and told him to go home safe. Who could this woman be? Woowon had a bright idea come into his head. He had to ask since she was here. He placed his hands together and tried his best to sound as polite as possible when asking her if he could borrow his work scooter tonight and promised to return it as soon as he's done. To his surprise, the woman noticed his unusual request and observed that he rarely asked for favors. This is their boss. This is his friend's aunt that owns that pizza shop. Woowon explained that he genuinely needed the scooter for the night and assured her that he would take great care of it. With a warm smile, his boss granted his request, reminding him to stay safe on the road. Woowon expressed his heartfelt gratitude for her kindness. "Thank you, kind boss lady." Woowon reaches for his phone, ready to call Seo An. He realizes that usually, it's the other way around, with Seo An offering him help whenever he needs it. But now, Woowon wants to be there for Seo An. In his mind, Woowon assures himself that lending a helping hand to Seo An won't bring any harm. Considering all the support and kindness Seo An has shown him in the past, Woowon is determined to reciprocate and show Seo An that he's there for him. Way to go, Woowon. Get your crush. Is this a crush? Seo An was wearing comfy casual wear, It looked like he already made up his mind to just be home all night, but we could see that there had been a change of plans. It's evident that Seo An was in a hurry, eager to go down and get out of his apartment. He immediately looked around for something, or someone. Lo and behold, the first person he spots outside is none other than Woowon, standing there with a scooter. The sight brings a spark of joy to Seo An's face, knowing that Woowon is there. Unlike his tone on the phone earlier, Seo An asked jokingly if Woowon would give him a ride. Woowon's enthusiastic nod confirms that he'll be the driver for the night. Under the warm glow of the streetlight, Woowon appears exceptionally handsome to Seo An. Seo An's mind starts to race with illogical thoughts, wondering if Woowon is flirting with him. His thoughts become a jumble, causing a delightful daze in his head. Oblivious to Seo An's state, Woowon mentions having only one helmet. Woowon wants to be cool and place the helmet on Seo An. But Seo An, being such a protective figure around Woowon, forces the helmet on him. Seo An told Woowon that the driver should be the one to wear the helmet. Woowon weakly told Seo An that the passenger is supposed to wear it. Seo An got on the scooter first and told Woowon to just drive slowly. Woowon could get a full view of him. Our delivery man was happy at the sight in front of him. Woowon couldn't help but be very giddy about seeing Seo An like that. He's hiding his smile under the helmet. Woowon, we saw that. You're not so sneaky. Woowon takes his seat in front of Seo An, ready to start driving. He instructs Seo An to hold on tight. Before their ride begins, Seo An can't help but gaze at Woowon once more. In Woowon's presence, a radiant warmth seems to wash over Seo An's typically pale face, filling it with vibrant color. They're both so happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy. Can it always stay this way? Seo An guided Woowon to a tranquil place where they could relax and unwind. They sat together, taking the opportunity to get to know each other better. Now it was Woowon's turn to share his special place with Seo An. He revealed that this place was where he usually found comfort and took a breather. Curiosity sparked within Seo An as he questioned whether Woowon's actions were influenced by their earlier phone call. Without waiting for a response, Seo An already knew the answer. Opening up further, Seo An shared his frustrations, attributing their current situation to his emotional state. Woowon, attentive and caring, asked how Seo An was feeling now. Expressing a sense of déjà vu, Seo An pondered why he felt better now but sensed that something was still missing. Woowon's cheeks flushed as he eagerly awaited Seo An's next words, his mind racing with anticipation. Woowon, what are you thinking? Knowing this man, he's probably thinking of something like an innocent love confession. Honestly, I wish that were the case, Woowon. With a smile, Seo An proposed that they have a drink together tonight. Drink together? Where? Imagine a drunken Seo An and Woowon. What's going to happen? The two men finally arrived at their destination. They found themselves on a rooftop, high above the bustling city lights and the crowds below. It was a serene and pristine space, with neatly arranged tables positioned at a considerable distance from one another. Each table was accompanied by chairs, inviting them to sit and enjoy the solitude. Seo An affectionately referred to this place as his hideout, a name that perfectly captured its essence. It was a hidden gem known only to those who had discovered its existence, offering a peaceful sanctuary away from the noise and commotion of the world below. Hideout is such a cute term. It's like he has a treehouse or something. Well, this might be a rich person's idea of a treehouse. The possibilities are endless with Seo An. Seo An and Woowon found themselves in a building owned by Seo An. It was a place that held a special meaning for him, and Woowon couldn't help but appreciate its charm. Finally, the two of them were able to enjoy their well-deserved beers. They had expressed their desire to drink together before, and now their wish had come true. Woowon mentioned that he hadn't had a drink in a long time. Seo An inquired if his busy work schedule was the reason. Woowon explained that drinking beer often left him tired the next day and could also be expensive, so he usually preferred getting a good night's sleep. Seo An playfully remarked that it sounded dull. Woowon agreed, saying that his own life could be monotonous at times. Concerned about Woowon's recent sick day, Seo An asked if he was feeling better. Woowon reassured him that he had successfully finished his work for the day and was feeling fine. Curiosity sparked within Seo An as he questioned how Woowon ended up working at the pizza shop. Woowon shared that a friend had recommended the job, emphasizing that it paid well. Seo An wondered if the salary was important to Woowon. He also complimented Woowon on his good looks, suggesting that he could pursue a career in modeling or even become a celebrity, leveraging Seo An's connections in the industry. Seo An offered to introduce him to influential people. Seo An is pulling out all his cards. Grateful for the offer, Woowon declined, explaining that he didn't want to work in that particular industry. He expressed concerns about debt collectors recognizing his face and potentially causing trouble for him. Woowon snapped back to reality and worried that his conversation had become depressing. Seo An reassured him that it didn't bother him at all. Seo An recalled the pressure Woowon was under, connecting the dots and realizing that it might be related to debt. Meanwhile, Woowon was anxious that he had made the conversation dip into a depressing tone. Seo An asked if there was anything Woowon would like to ask him. Woowon, with innocence in his eyes, inquired about why Seo An had called him during work earlier that day. Seo An didn't hold back and revealed that his father had contacted him. They hadn't seen each other in a while, and all his father did was criticize and scold him. Woowon empathized, acknowledging that Seo An's father was strict. Seo An expressed that his father was stubborn and had never shown satisfaction or happiness. He felt that his father was disappointed in him as a son. Seo An admitted that his father had always been this way, though he understood his position in society. Woowon reassured Seo An that even though he understood the burden Seo An carried as a result of his father's expectations, it didn't mean that the way his father treated him didn't hurt any less. "I'm so happy these two are so comfy with each other. They can vent. God knows they both needed the ranting and a shoulder to lean on for a long time." Seo An smirked. "Hey, you have no business looking that handsome." He was genuinely happy that Woowon had expressed empathy towards him and found Woowon's slightly flustered appearance endearing. Leaning closer to Woowon, Seo An playfully rested his chin on his hand and pointed out the expression on Woowon's face. He teasingly remarked that Woowon looked like a kicked puppy, despite Seo An being the one scolded earlier. Woowon blushed, feeling a mix of embarrassment and nervousness. He quickly tried to defend himself, insisting that he wasn't making any particular face at all. With a mischievous intention, Seo An playfully aimed to make a point by teasing Woowon about his facial expression. Extending his hand, Seo An gently tapped Woowon's forehead, emphasizing the question of what kind of face he was making. A playful smirk adorned Seo An's face, reflecting his light-hearted mood and enjoyment of the moment. Caught off guard, Woowon blushed even more, instinctively adjusting his bangs and averting his gaze, displaying a mixture of shyness and bashfulness. "Oh my god, Woowon really liked this. Seo An, you're too smooth." As the night unfolded, a delightful ambience filled the air, accompanied by the clinking of beer cans and shared laughter. Woowon and Seo An continued to enjoy their drinks, immersing themselves in the pleasant atmosphere. As their evening gradually winded down, they took occasional sips from their cans of beer, relishing the panoramic view below them. Amidst this serene moment, Woowon found himself captivated by Seo An's presence, oblivious to the possibility of being noticed. No helmet, mask, or the people around them could conceal the fact that his gaze was fixed on Seo An. Deep in his thoughts, Woowon contemplated the meaning of understanding someone. He pondered whether it could be a form of despair, recognizing that those who have experienced pain would understand this sentiment. When wounds become heavy burdens, hindering progress to a better you, despair often masquerades as understanding. It becomes an attempt to make sense of the chaos that unfolds around us. Inwardly, Woowon sought to ask Seo An a question. He yearned to know if Seo An shared the same perspective and if he believed that trying to understand those who hurt them was their way of making sense of their uncontrollable hardships. Moreover, Woowon wondered if when Seo An escaped from his troubles, particularly his family and work, he was also striving to understand his father, the one who had caused him so much pain. Now, if you think that you have to understand people's behavior in order to weave a story about what happened between you and them for closure, the story is never about why they did what they did. The story is about you, whether your needs are met and what you do to move on and get what you want in life. Choose you and your peace of mind. In the middle of work, Woowon was on his scooter and observing his own wounded hand. He's happy that his hand doesn't hurt as much. He's thinking of taking his bandage off at the hospital. While Woowon was in a jolly mood, he received a call on his phone from a phone number with no caller ID. Are these his debt collectors? Is it his dad? Maybe his mom got a new number. Who's this? Woowon arrived at a bustling corner of the city where a crowd had gathered around the entrance of a building. People were agitated and upset. Desperate for answers, Woowon shouted, trying to catch someone's attention in the crowd. He wanted to know who had called him and warned him about the scam that was taking place. Finally, a person from the crowd approached him, asking if he lived in apartment 402. Woowon confirmed his residence and anxiously inquired about the situation. The individual informed Woowon of unfortunate news. It turned out that they had all signed leases with Sujiang Realty, only to discover that the realty company was a group of scammers. The landlord of the apartment complex had called them all. They instructed the residents to evacuate, as their contracts were illegitimate and the real estate agency was unreachable. As everyone around him vented their frustrations, Woowon felt overwhelmed. The world around him seemed blurry, and the noise became deafening. Memories of empty promises from the police, who had vowed to catch the culprits, flooded his mind. Those promises felt just as hollow as the ones made by Sujiang Realty when he had first rented the apartment. Amidst the chaos, one heartbreaking sentence that he wished was fake stood out to Woowon. He would likely not receive full compensation for the rent he had already paid. It became clear that he had missed several red flags, such as the subcontractor preventing him from meeting the landlord. The whole situation felt absurd and laughable to Woowon, adding to his despair. He was left contemplating his next steps. Finding a new place seemed impossible due to financial constraints, and he had no idea where to store his belongings. His current financial situation was uncertain, and he dreaded the thought of informing his mother about what had transpired. The future felt uncertain and daunting. Lost in his distressing thoughts, Woowon noticed the previous missed call from Seo An on his phone. With a heavy sigh, he ignored it and instead dialed his boss's number at the pizza store. This was a way worse situation. Where is Woowon going to stay? Woowon managed to find a temporary place to stay. He reached out to an old coworker named Minsung from his previous job, who kindly offered to let Woowon stay at his place for a while. The two were seated next to a bed with both of them cross-legged and in pajamas on the floor like a sleepover. During their conversation, they shared information about what had happened at their former workplace. Minsung informed Woowon that both their former coworker and manager had been fired, indicating a significant change in the company. Were these the people from the first chapter? Did we get justice for Woowon? Curious about Woowon's current situation, Minsung asked what had happened to his previous living arrangement. Woowon briefly explained the unfortunate circumstances he had faced and why he needed a place to stay temporarily. Woowon blames himself for getting into this situation. Minsung got mad and told him it was the scammer's fault, not his. Although Woowon acknowledged that Minsung was right, Minsung could sense that Woowon was being less than truthful and still shouldering the blame himself. Thank you for understanding, Minsung. If only we could get into Woowon's head and tell his brain directly. Woowon, wanting to shift the conversation to a more positive note, directed Minsung's attention to the neatly hung suits in the corner of the room. He wholeheartedly congratulated Minsung on securing a job, genuinely happy for his friend's success. In response, Minsung couldn't contain his excitement and immediately stood up, proudly pointing at the suits as a symbol of his newfound employment. He couldn't help but share how fortunate he was to have supportive parents who had graciously provided him with these expensive garments. After Minsung shared his excitement about his job and the suits, he kindly reminded Woowon that it was time for some rest. As the night wore on, Woowon and Minsung found themselves lying side by side, sharing the same sleeping space. Minsung peacefully drifted off into a deep slumber, undisturbed by any worries or troubles that plagued Woowon's restless mind. Unable to find comfort in sleep, Woowon's eyes remained open, fixed on the suits hanging in the room. They silently taunted him, a constant reminder of Minsung's success and his own current predicament. He's overthinking again, just like that time he compared his situation with college students at Korea University. Will Woowon be able to find a new place? Will he get another job? His situation is getting sticky. I hope it's a lot better tomorrow. It was in the middle of the night, and Woowon was the only one awake. He keeps thinking about what he could have done to make his situation as lucky as the people in the university, or even end up being like Minsa. He can't continue overthinking. He decided to finally sleep. He had a long day ahead anyway. Amidst the busy workday, Woowon found himself on a short break, desperately scrolling through listings in search of an affordable place to call home. However, his efforts yielded no promising updates or responses from the places he had reached out to. The weight of his situation began to bear on him, prompting thoughts of finding a new job in hopes of improving his circumstances. During his struggles, a realization dawned on him. He knew he would eventually have to tell his mom about his current predicament. Yet, a sense of reluctance overwhelmed him, as he didn't want to burden her with his problems while she was still recovering at his Aunt Hyunhee's place. As Woowon contemplated his next steps, a notification jolted him from his thoughts. However, it wasn't from a realtor, an update on his case, or even his current workplace. It was a message from Seo An inquiring if he was out for a delivery, implying that Woowon must be busy that day. Woowon cannot find the will to reply with anything. This man needs more than just a vacation. From Seo An's perspective, it looks like Woowon was busy. Seo An was on his couch, mindlessly staring at his phone. Woowon hasn't replied for days, and Seo An was left with his phone glued to his face because he's still hoping that the delivery man would reply any time now. Remembering Woowon, he could only think of good things. He remembers that time he tapped on Woowon's face and made him blush hard. He knew that the vibes weren't bad. He knew Woowon wasn't upset. Seo An remembers that time when Woowon was asleep in front of him. He was very beautiful and looked at peace in his sleeping state. Seo An sprang up from the couch and sat right. He thought to himself that Woowon might be sick again. Woowon is in a bad mood. Don't worry, Seo An is here. Always the first one to know somehow. Seo An finds himself outside Woowon's apartment door. No one was responding to him. Seo An ended up lightly kicking the door because he was only met with silence. Eventually, he caught someone's attention. A kind-hearted woman carrying a box informed Seo An that all the residents on that floor had already moved out days ago, leaving the place deserted. She sympathized with Seo An's evident bewilderment. She explained that the reason for the mass exodus was a real estate scam that had victimized everyone in the apartment complex. Meanwhile, as night fell, Woowon sat alone in a park, tightly gripping a can of beer. The emptiness around him mirrored the emptiness he felt inside. He received a text from Minsung, who expressed his imminent need for sleep and urged Woowon to return home soon. The idea of being indebted to someone weighed heavily on Woowon's mind. He had always prided himself on being self-reliant, but now he found himself unable to stand alone, both literally and figuratively. Woowon's spiraling thoughts came to a halt as his name was called out. He couldn't ignore the voice that called him. It was unmistakable. The voice's owner turned out to be Seo An, appearing worried and standing by a luxurious car. He was dressed in smart casual attire, adding to the stark contrast between them. Seo An revealed that he had been waiting near the pizza shop, expecting Woowon to emerge. He confessed that he had considered calling, but since Woowon hadn't responded, he refrained from doing so, expressing his frustration. Seo An admitted that he had been waiting to hear from Woowon for a whole week. He emphasized how he had no idea where Woowon had disappeared to. Seo An then confronted Woowon directly, asking if he had become annoyed with him. Seo An revealed that he had gone to Woowon's place and learned about how he got scammed. Woowon was furious. He was pissed that Seo An always seemed to find him at his lowest points in life. He vented his frustration, questioning why he should confide in Seo An. Woowon believed that sharing his problems with Seo An wouldn't be useful, as Seo An wouldn't be able to do anything to help him. Unbothered by Woowon's sudden tone, Seo An firmly expressed his desire to assist Woowon. He offered his place as a temporary shelter and pledged to help with the legal battle against the scammers. Woowon's dissatisfaction persisted, and he repeatedly insisted that venting and sharing his problems wouldn't solve anything. He argued that if sharing his issues with Seo An had even the slightest positive effect on his situation, he would have sought help countless times before. Realizing that he had struck a nerve, Seo An faltered. Woowon pressed Seo An for an explanation as to why he had even bothered to search for him in the first place. Woowon, the enemy isn't Seo An here. I hope he doesn't push him away. It's up to Seo An now to try and make the situation better. Or will they butt heads? Late into the night, there's nothing but tension in the air. Seo An just wanted to make sure if Woowon was fine and had been searching all day for him. Woowon, on the other hand, wanted a breather and a beer in hand. And it all turned into a mess. Seo An extended a calm and sincere apology, acknowledging that his earlier words had caused more harm than good. He clarified that his initial concern for Woowon stemmed from believing that Woowon might be sick again. Seo An's composed demeanor in the face of Woowon's outburst was truly remarkable. I could not do the same thing. Be calm and collected, guys. Think before you speak. Woowon, recognizing his own outburst, offered his apology, realizing that Seo An was not the enemy and that he had unfairly directed his anger toward him. Woowon blamed himself that he couldn't take all those harsh words back now, and he wished he should have shrugged those troubles off as usual, holding no grudges. Seo An shifted the conversation and inquired about Woowon's current living arrangements. Woowon shared that he was staying with a friend, prompting Seo An's slight frustration that Woowon told his friend about this situation but not him. Someone is jealous. Hehe. Seo An asked how long Woowon was staying there. He really wants Woowon to stay with him since it would just be perfect. Woowon gets a place to stay, and Seo An would always have peace of mind, and there would be someone to calm him down if he feels like an episode is about to come in. Woowon said he doesn't have enough money saved to move, so he doesn't know when he'll move out. Seo An, seizing the opportunity, made a heartfelt request for Woowon to stay with him. He revealed that Woowon's presence had been instrumental in stabilizing his own struggles and that his therapist had advised him to maintain social interactions. Seo An admitted to feeling lonely when alone at home. Last line is not true. He's just desperate at this point, and we could see why. Woowon confirmed what Seo An said if he meant living at his apartment in the Gold Palace. Seo An eagerly nodded in confirmation, his enthusiasm shining through. Persistence is key. A sense of nervousness crept over Woowon as he contemplated the idea. He couldn't help but think about Minsung's offer to stay at his place for as long as needed. However, the underlying feeling of burden weighed heavily on Woowon's mind. He worried that staying with Seo An wouldn't change that perception and that he would continue to feel like a burden to someone else. Seo An, perceptive as ever, understood Woowon's tendency to overthink. Deep down, Seo An truly wanted Woowon to be by his side. With a genuine plea, he asked Woowon for a favor, to stay with him. Seo An reminded Woowon of what happened, from a person who lost it in public to someone who now walks around the city seemingly without a problem. A glimmer of optimism surrounded Seo An's request as Woowon had to confirm again if he could really help Seo An with his situation. And Seo An stated that he could help Woowon if Woowon could help him in return. Sounds sinister, but knowing these two, this would feel like a sleepover because they're so wholesome. Woowon finally settled into his new home, and everything felt fresh and rejuvenating, even though he had been in this space before. The surroundings sparkled with new possibilities. Despite moving in, Woowon still had concerns about being a burden, in case he faced another unfortunate situation. He had arranged to store his furniture and kitchenware at the pizza shop. His understanding manager had kindly agreed to keep them safe until he found a permanent place. Seo An couldn't help but feel annoyed by Woowon's worries. He insisted that Woowon could bring all his belongings to the apartment without hesitation. Seo An is sure that Woowon didn't have much stuff anyway, and there was plenty of space to accommodate everything. The owner of the apartment wanted to emphasize that the length of Woowon's stay didn't matter to him. In fact, he believed that the longer Woowon stayed, the better it would be for Seo An's end. He even told him that he could pay for living expenses if he wanted to, and there was no rush on it. Seo An reminded Woowon that he needs and deserves all the support he can get. It's the same message for everyone. Like Woowon, listen to Seo An. Seo An kindly requested Woowon to share his weekly schedule to make living together a lot easier. Woowon, although still feeling timid and nervous, expressed his gratitude and promised to provide the information as soon as he finished unpacking. However, Woowon couldn't help but overthink whether he should be there or not. Woowon, didn't you listen to Seo An? You need and deserve all the support you can get. As he tried to understand Woowon's current schedule, Seo An couldn't help but feel concerned. Woowon explained that he still needed more money to secure a new place and pay the security deposit. He wanted Woowon to live there so that he doesn't have to worry about a lot of things like food, heat, and whether he would get evicted or not. To shift the conversation to a more positive note, Seo An reminded Woowon about what he had previously mentioned, which was what Woowon could do for Seo An in return for the apartment room. Curious, Woowon asked Seo An what he could do for him. Seo An expressed his wish to go for evening walks together, starting with short walks of 10 minutes and gradually increasing the duration. Seo An hoped to walk alongside Woowon and spend quality time together. This is cute. The main plan is for Woowon to get off work. He sends Seo An a 10-minute notice. Seo An starts walking. They meet halfway, and then they go home together. Woowon took note of this and agreed. Woowon couldn't help but express how simple and easy the task of going for evening walks seemed. Seo An agrees, but he said this walk means a lot to him. He further explains that it's hard to find someone who could help him every day. He can easily pay anyone to help him, but the person he must walk with has to be Woowon. With this, Woowon couldn't say no because he got flustered and felt like his heart was dancing. Does Seo An not know how much of a smooth talker he is? Woowon was about to express his concerns to Seo An regarding paying for living expenses, but to his surprise, Seo An was already prepared for that question. Seo An is lying about this part, but he is going to give Woowon a job either way. Seo An opened up and mentioned that he knew a friend who needed some extra help with his work, as it had become quite overwhelming for him. In his thoughts, Seo An considered that his friend, Yoo-han, would be a good person to reach out to for any available job openings. Yoo-han and Woowon together in one room. I can't imagine that happening. Yoo-han would definitely spill tea about Seo An. Seo An then tells Woowon to go to sleep. Woowon says his thanks and asks Seo An a question. He inquired if he could use Seo An's kitchen the following morning. Seo An replied that he hardly used his own kitchen and assured Woowon that he was welcome to use it. Furthermore, Seo An mentioned that if Woowon planned to have breakfast, he would be delighted to join him. Don't regret this, you night owl. The next morning, an alarm disrupted Seo An's sleep, irritating him. He realized he must have set it the night before and begrudgingly acknowledged waking up so early, and he regretted it. The only regret Seo An had from the previous night was agreeing to have breakfast. However, he made a promise to himself that after the meal, he would prioritize getting some much-needed rest and sleep. As Seo An stepped out of his bedroom and descended the spiral stairs, he abruptly paused midway. Woowon was in the kitchen, dressed in a crisp white button-down shirt and blue slacks. Seo An had a perfect view of his back as Woowon focused on cooking. Seo An couldn't help but feel elated by the sight. A wide grin formed on his face, and his heart filled with joy. Shaking off his daze, Seo An made his way downstairs and asked Woowon what he was preparing for breakfast. Woowon surmised that Seo An wasn't typically a breakfast person, so he had prepared a light salad with toast. Seo An, curious to see more of what Woowon was doing, playfully rested his chin on Woowon's shoulder. Woowon's eyes widened in surprise at Seo An's playful gesture. Drawing closer, Seo An inquired how Woowon knew he didn't usually eat breakfast. Woowon explained that it was often the case for people who lived alone. Seo An wondered if Woowon had known this about him since they first met. Woowon revealed that he had realized it when he made his initial pizza delivery to Seo An's place. At the time, Seo An was half asleep and accepted the pizza. Woowon admitted that he had hesitated while handing it over, assuming Seo An might not remember the encounter since it had been quite some time. Seo An, the human vampire whose sleep was disturbed because of heavy doorbell ringing. Seo An was taken aback upon hearing this revelation. Although he didn't recall all the details, he guessed it must be related to Yuhan. Seo An mentioned that he remembered Woowon wearing a helmet during the delivery, which initially prevented him from recognizing him. Woowon, we tried to tell you. Talking about their second encounter like this makes my heart feel warm. Woowon explained that he had kept his helmet on, even though it was mandatory to remove it, because he felt nervous being in the penthouse for the first time. Seo An offered to make coffee for Woowon, who gladly accepted the offer. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is domestic bliss. Curious, Seo An asked why Woowon had been nervous about coming to his place. Woowon replied he had never delivered to the Gold Palace before. Seo An playfully teased Woowon, suggesting that now that he was inside the penthouse, he might as well faint from the overwhelming experience. Woowon, with a cute expression, pleaded for Seo An to refrain from teasing him. Seo An, don't tease him. Actually, please do. He's very adorable. Over the wonderful breakfast Woowon made, Seo An told Woowon that he gave Woowon's number to the contact he talked about for work. Woowon acknowledged the news but raised a concern about how the walks would fit into his schedule if he accepted the job. However, he assured Seo An that he would assist with the walks in any way he could. Seo An expressed his confidence in Woowon's reliability. He suggested that Woowon simply text him when he was approximately 10 minutes away from home, so Seo An could start his walk outside. Seo An admitted that he was still adjusting to interacting with people. Woowon was a very determined puppy and huffed with energy. He asked if he could help more, brimming with motivation. Seo An grinned. Woowon was very easy to read for him. Seo An wonders what else he could do for Woowon. What's with that smile, King Seo An? What does that mean? What is he going to do with Woowon? Seo An looked back at his past. He remembered that there was a time when he always went the extra mile for people. He remembers when he was still in the 2nd grade and got first place in math for a major event in his school. His efforts always filled the void in his heart. He thought that he could convince himself that he would achieve everything by doing his best. It was a false belief that he was doing well in many areas of his life. He placed his award from the math competition on his father's desk. He had a lot of hope that things would change if he kept going the extra mile. Seo An knew he was heading in the wrong direction when his parents never acknowledged his efforts. His award and probably many other achievements was swept under the rug. With each passing day, Seo An's heart sank a little deeper, burdened by a sense of isolation and longing. His accomplishments, once a source of pride and joy, became bitter reminders of his unnoticed existence. Whenever Seo An looks at Woowon, his suppressed thoughts would come out. So this means he never went the extra mile for other people besides his family. I mean, helping out Woowon more than once was God's gift. What else does Seo An have in mind? Woowon snapped Seo An out of his thoughts. The delivery man was off to start his day at work. Seo An acknowledged this and told him to take care of himself. Once the door closed, Seo An could probably feel how different the place was without another presence near him. The apartment owner plopped down on the couch and realized how he hadn't sent somebody off since he was in elementary school. He also admits that he's probably going to wait for Woowon for the whole day while he has nothing else planned besides his mundane tasks at home. It was only 11:32 in the morning, and Seo An hoped time flew faster. Seo An went to his personal gym while staring at the clock. He still had a lot of time left. He ate dinner by himself. He probably prepared it or ordered it a couple of minutes ago. He still had time left. He was reading a book while having his eyes switch from the pages to one of the clocks at home. You guessed it, he still had time left. Seo An sighed as he stared down at the clock. He is growing impatient. He definitely deems himself as not being cut out for this. Seo An couldn't help but constantly glance at the clock ever since Woowon left. Dude, it's been 12 hours. He feels like he said this before. And he did. Chapter 5. When he ordered and ate 5 pizzas boxes in a row just because the pizza delivery man was both kind and hot. Yes, and we all should be grateful for his determination. Every passing moment seemed to stretch out as if time had conspired to test Seo An's patience. Seo An thought of himself as a dog waiting for his owner. Imagine Seo An with cute dog ears. I bet Woowon would love to see that. As Seo An began expressing impatience, his phone suddenly sprung to life, its melodic ring cutting through the air with energy. With a mix of surprise and delight, Seo An quickly grabbed his phone and was greeted by the sound of Woowon's voice. It filled Seo An's ears. With his eagerness bubbling over, Seo An couldn't help but be swept up in the moment. He was so thrilled to hear from Woowon that he didn't pay much attention to the details of what he was saying. Seo An quickly responded, telling Woowon that he would immediately head out to meet him. Seo An stepped outside his apartment, greeted by the darkness of the night. The street was sparsely populated, with only a few individuals visible nearby. An overwhelming sense of discomfort washed over Seo An, and he averted his gaze from the people around him. Instead, he focused his attention downward, fixating on the bracelet adorning his wrist, hoping it would provide some comfort and calm his racing thoughts. During his heightened emotions, Seo An couldn't help but notice the onset of rain. The droplets began to fall, adding another layer of discomfort to his already tense state. Like last time, someone offered him an umbrella to shield himself from the rain. When Seo An looked up, he saw a smiling and reassuring Woowon. Woowon smiled a lot and expressed how happy he was that Seo An made it to their promised location at a specific time. His beaming smile radiated positivity, bringing a sense of reassurance to Seo An's troubled mind. Remember the first time they met? Woowon is doing that exact same thing again. This is so romantic. Should I bring an umbrella next time too? Seo An couldn't help but get a deep blush out of this situation. Woowon, always on time to save our Seo An. He's an angel. The two men were under Woowon's umbrella. They discussed that the forecast predicted rain, but Seo An didn't bring an umbrella because it hadn't rained for a while. Seo An was very happy and at ease. He realized that Woowon was all it took to calm him down. Seo An, if you think Woowon is easy to read, well, so are you. Woowon asked Seo An if he was fine being outside. Seo An said he was. Woowon expressed his initial worry about Seo An venturing outside, questioning if he was pushing himself too hard. However, he was relieved and content to see that Seo An was doing well. Seo An's smile grew wider as he was touched by Woowon's genuine concern. The faint blush on his cheeks remained, a testament to his emotions. Seo An expressed his gratitude to Woowon for everything. Standing closely together, shoulder to shoulder, beneath the umbrella, their proximity felt intimate and romantic. Seo An admitted that he felt indebted to Woowon. In return, Woowon humbly acknowledged that he owed Seo An as well. Is this their idea of flirting? Curious about Woowon's recovery, Seo An inquired about his arm. Woowon happily informed him that it was healing well, to the point where he would soon be able to remove the bandages. Seo An inquired about the job he had offered to help Woowon with. Woowon shared that he hadn't been contacted about it yet. Woowon managed to reach the hospital and had his arm examined and bandages removed. A sense of relief washed over him as he realized he was now all right. The doctor, Hean, advised him to return to the hospital if he ever felt like the pain was coming back. Hean expressed how it had been quite a while since their last encounter. He mentioned that he was initially concerned when Woowon ended up in the hospital during their reunion after such a long time. However, he was glad to see Woowon doing better. In a moment of vulnerability, Hean admitted to Woowon that he had witnessed him during his lowest moments. Woowon reciprocated by acknowledging that Hean had also seen him at his worst. Woowon fondly remembers his time swimming before the accident happened. Back in high school, Woowon was already debating about whether or not he should be out of the club already or not. Either way, he still hung around in the pool to clear his head whenever he felt tense or stressed. During those nights when he would swim to clear his head, he would meet Hean. They speak so fondly of each other. I wonder what happened between them. Did Woowon like Hean before? Should Seo An watch out? But Hean has a boyfriend already. Hean's presence always stood out to Woowon amidst the rest of the people in the swimming pool. Each time Woowon saw him, he noticed the weariness etched on Hean's face. Initially, Woowon was too shy to approach him, so he simply observed Hean from a distance. One day, Hean took the initiative to speak to Woowon. He mentioned that he had noticed Woowon staring at him frequently. Feeling guilty, Woowon apologized to Hean, but Hean reassured him and asked for his name instead. From then on, their interactions grew more frequent, and they greeted each other regularly. During their conversations, they touched upon topics like swimming. Woowon asked Hean if swimming was difficult for him since he always seemed tired and weary while swimming. Hean explained that there are no easy sports and that his fatigue mainly stemmed from the stress of his studies. Swimming served as his means of escape and stress relief. Curious about Woowon's future aspirations, Hean inquired if Woowon aimed to become a professional athlete. Woowon admitted it wouldn't be possible since he needed to start earning money immediately. Though Woowon didn't delve into the specifics, Hean understood his situation. In return, Hean opened up to him. Hean shared that he had run away from home and come to Seoul alone, driven by the need to succeed in his studies. He briefly mentioned his circumstances, and Woowon empathized deeply with him. Having someone who shared a similar journey provided Woowon with a sense of comfort. During one of their late-night conversations, Woowon questioned what would happen once he stopped swimming and started doing new things in life, like working. Hean assured him that regardless of the circumstances, Woowon would excel in it because he displayed immense determination and dedication to the idea of working already. Looking at quitting swimming, Woowon couldn't help but feel sad. Hean comforted him by rubbing his head, encouraging him to stop overthinking, and reminding him that love and grief often go hand in hand. As they gazed at the stars that night, Woowon found himself contemplating whether he had ever truly loved swimming, considering how easily he was letting it go. He was so young making those decisions. Whether he had a deal with his mom about this or he had taken it upon himself to be the breadwinner, it's still a hard decision to make. At least he's doing well now, especially when he knows he has someone to lean on like Seo An. He wondered where he would be now if he had remained steadfast and continued pursuing something instead of letting go of a lot of things during that time. Shaking off his overthinking, Woowon returned to reality, realizing he was sitting in front of Hien, now as a doctor, feeling remorseful. Woowon offered his apologies to Hien for never reaching out. Hien quickly reassured him, stating that there was no need for an apology and suggesting that they should meet more often from then on. The idea delighted Woowon, and he agreed. Suddenly, Hien recalled something and directed his attention towards Woowon. He asked how Woowon knew Seo An. Woowon's cheeks reddened with embarrassment as he explained that he had been involved in an accident, and Seo An had extended a helping hand. Since then, Seo An has continued to assist him. Woowon felt immense gratitude towards Seo An but also carried a burden of guilt, as he believed that Seo An was going out of his way to help him. Hien sat there, astonished by the revelation. He had already suspected that Seo An was flirting with Woowon. Hien even discussed this with his boyfriend, Yuhan, and they both agreed that Seo An was putting in all the effort. From Hien's perspective, Woowon seemed to be straight. Hien, don't break Seo An's heart like this. Hien hoped that Woowon would take care of Seo An. He silently hoped that Woowon would be an open-minded man, such a supportive friend. Hien, wish there were more people like you. Seo An and Woowon were exchanging text messages. It was a pleasant evening, perfect for their planned walks together. They're so cute for each other, so domestic. It had been a few days since they started walking together, and Seo An found it to be somewhat easier than he had anticipated. He knew he was not completely healed yet, but things like being in a crowd or making eye contact with people in public weren't as suffocating as he remembered. Seo An took pride in this progress. He didn't want to prove his father right. He was healing, and he'll get there. And he will. Speaking of all of this turmoil, deep down, Seo An wished that Woowon would stay by his side longer. However, he struggled to bring up this topic and express his feelings. Just as Seo An was lost in his thoughts and worries, his gaze shifted ahead. It landed on a person who stirred fear within him, a familiar figure that sent shivers down his spine and left him frozen. He's not even sure if this was anyone he knew, but this person's hairstyle, how this stranger carried himself, and how he smiled were all too similar to someone Seo An once knew. This person was triggering memories of someone yelling at Seo An, the sensation of someone else lurking behind him with ill intentions, and the pain of being struck from behind with a bat. As he physically turned around, he could see the looming presence of another person, but he couldn't see this other person's face. But the dread from that time resurfaced vividly. Seo An remembered the hurtful comments directed at him, despite being the one who ended up injured and hospitalized with a broken arm. At that moment, Seo An couldn't help but feel an overwhelming urge to physically flee the situation, desperate to escape the haunting memories and distress they brought upon him, all because a stranger walking towards him looked a bit too similar to someone he used to know. Woowon was enjoying his walk home, filled with a sense of joy and anticipation. He had just received a message informing him that he had landed the job that Seo An had encouraged him to pursue. His face beamed with excitement as he quickly replied to the message that he'll see his future co-workers tomorrow. The feeling of getting accepted for a job cannot be replaced. You have to celebrate soon. Woowon, you deserve this. Woowon couldn't help but want to tell Seo An all about this. Seo An being the first person he was to tell about this is just too wholesome. Woowon, please. Speaking of Seo An, Woowon looked for any sign of him, but there was no trace. They were supposed to meet a while ago, and a slight unease began to settle within Woowon. Woowon's heart sank as he struggled to reach Seo An over the phone. When Seo An was able to pick up the call, he didn't say anything at all. The silence on the other end pierced Woowon, amplifying his growing worry. He repeatedly called out Seo An's name, desperate for any response, but all he encountered was a haunting emptiness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Seo An's voice came through, weak and tremulous. The words that escaped Seo An's lips were a heavy blow to Woowon's already burdened spirit. Seo An revealed that he had experienced one of his crippling episodes. Woowon's mind raced as he tried to grasp the severity of the situation. He needed to know where Seo An was, to be by his side and offer comfort. Thankfully, Seo An did tell him where he was. With a trembling determination, Woowon gathered himself and began his frantic search for Seo An, fearing what he might find when they finally reunited. Will Seo An be okay? Did he really get hurt or was it all in his head? Please let him be okay. Woowon emerged into Seo An's line of sight, his face flushed, and his breath labored from running. Seo An's lips curled into a small smile upon seeing Woowon, the person who looked tired from running all the way towards him but was still determined to ask him if Seo An was okay. Seo An in distress. Your friendly neighbor Woowon is there. Seo An felt an overwhelming sense of reassurance. Seo An told Woowon that he had mistaken a stranger for someone he knew. He uttered a not-so-nice nickname for this stranger in a fit of frustration. He expresses how a bunch of unwanted thoughts are popping into his head. Woowon uttered the nickname that Seo An calls this stranger. He advises Seo An to think about something other than this. Previously, Woowon's comfort stemmed from sympathy, but now a newfound determination burned within him. He wants to know who Seo An is referring to, what those unwanted thoughts are in his head, and why all of this is hurting Seo An so much. Tell us when we can use our pitchforks, Woowon. We must protect Seo An at all costs. Upon their arrival at the apartment, Seo An slumped onto the couch, exuding an air of exhaustion. Concerned, Woowon asked if Seo An was feeling unwell again, but Seo An reassured him that he simply wanted to unwind after a long day. Woowon is so careful around Seo An. I cannot imagine him being mean once. Seo An's fatigue dissipated momentarily when Woowon removed his hat from his head. Seo An smiled wide because of this gesture. Woowon, now, you're definitely showing interest outside of your thoughts there. Let's speed it up. Hey. Woowon kindly offered Seo An some water, but Seo An said he could have it later. All he wanted was for Woowon to sit close to him. Seo An relaxed his whole body on the couch, finding comfort in seeing that Woowon scooted closer to him. Woowon settled on the floor next to Seo An, tucking his knees close to his chest. Curious about Seo An's day at home, Woowon engaged in small talk with him. Though the topics were ordinary, their comfort in each other's company was irreplaceable. Let them stay this way where no one could hurt them. The following day, Woowon finally arrived at his new job. As he entered the bustling scene, preparing for a show where cameras were everywhere, he couldn't help but be captivated by the sparkle and busy nature of the environment. Each person he encountered seemed absorbed in their tasks and didn't pay attention to him at all. Woowon introduced himself to a random staff member, expressing that he was a part-time assistant. Maybe this could help him get a task done and know who he should report to. The staff member guided him towards the director of the set. The director scrutinized Woowon from head to toe, inquiring if he aspired to become a model. Taken aback, Woowon politely declined the suggestion. The director found Woowon's reply strange but continued complimenting his looks. She proceeded to show him the ropes on the set. Amidst the bustling crowd, Woowon's gaze was distracted and settled on an individual who effortlessly stood out. You have good taste, Woowon. He is cute. This tall figure commanded attention, radiating confidence with a serious expression on his face. It dawned on Woowon that this must be one of the people who had accompanied Seo An to the bar. He was in awe, realizing that Seo An's friend was a celebrity. Lost in his starstruck trance, Woowon needed someone to call out his name to snap him back to the present, so he could continue with the guided tour of the set. We know he's cute, Woowon, but this is your first day. Chop. Woowon finally got a break after doing a lot of labor work. It was finally lunch. Woowon just wanted to have a break for a while, so he found a spot to sit down and not be seen by all his co-workers. It's not like he wants to avoid work, but he's pretty introverted. Amen, brother. Just as he was resting and drinking water, he suddenly wondered how Seo An was doing. Viewers, take this as a sign to drink water. As he rested and sipped water, his thoughts wandered to Seo An. Just as he was about to reach for his phone, a gentle interruption caught his attention. It was Seo An's celebrity friend. Woowon felt as though he had entered a trance. He found the celebrity attractive and was overall starstruck due to his fame. Yoo-han politely asked if he could join Woowon, to which Woowon eagerly agreed. Curiosity sparked within Woowon when Yoo-han inquired if he recognized him. Woowon looked him up over the internet earlier and confidently said that he was the actor Yoo-han. Yoo-han playfully told him that's not what he meant and corrected him, asking if Woowon recognized him from the bar instead. Yoo-han mentioned that Woowon had landed the job thanks to his connections, recalling the night at the bar when Seo An visited. Woowon was right in realizing that Yoo-han must have been the one accompanying him at that time. Woowon expressed his gratitude to Yoo-han for helping him secure the job. Yoo-han urged Woowon not to be overly formal and claimed that they might even be the same age. He maintained a friendly demeanor, finding amusement in Woowon's nervousness around him. Yoo-han, Woowon is a nervous wreck. Please be gentle. Seo An will know about it, and you might get scolded hee. Yoo-han inquired if Woowon was currently living with Seo An. Woowon confirmed that he was, albeit temporarily. Curious about their relationship and Woowon's reaction, Yoo-han asked if Woowon knew Seo An's type. Perplexed, Woowon doesn't know what Yoo-han meant by type. Yoo-han disclosed that he was attracted to men and had a preference for exceptionally handsome and tall individuals. Woowon now understood what Yoo-han meant by type. Among Yoo-han's words, one statement struck Woowon deeply, causing his expression to turn serious. Woowon's mood took a sudden downturn. He felt discouraged by this revelation. However, Yoo-han was merely teasing and chuckling at Woowon's reaction. Yoo-han didn't mention any names, but it seemed like he was talking about Hee-an while smiling mischievously. Yoo-han wanted Woowon to think he was talking about Seo An. And it's working. Cheeky. Shifting the conversation, Yoo-han asked about Seo An's well-being and whether he had been sleeping well. Woowon realized that Yoo-han and Seo An must be close since Yoo-han was aware of Seo An's struggles with sleep. Woowon informed Yuhan that Seo An had recently experienced a paralyzing episode but eventually calmed down and made it home safely. Instinctively, Yuhan inquired if Seo An's father had paid a visit. At this moment, Woowon pieced together the connection between Seo An's episodes and his father. All the conversations about Seo An's troubled relationship with his dad suddenly made sense. Yuhan then offered to share more about Seo An, particularly their elementary school days together. Woowon initially wanted to decline, but Yuhan playfully teased him into agreeing. Woowon, it's written on your face you're curious too. Just say yes. Yuhan began recounting those early years. When Seo An was in elementary school, he was very distinguished, just like he is now. Everyone knew him for his hot temper, though, and how Seo An was a neat freak and always had snarky remarks. Many kids wanted to be friends with Seo An even though he had many downsides, mainly because his family was wealthy. Yuhan shared that he was one of those kids. Elementary school Seo An. Would he be cute like from his other memories? But the way Yuhan is introducing him, it doesn't sound like fond memories. At the age of 12, Yuhan had a strong admiration for Japanese romance manga featuring groups of handsome, wealthy students. His ultimate goal was to form his own group of rich and attractive friends, with Seo An as his primary target. He's perfect for the role, Yuhan. Good eye. Seo An possessed all the qualities Yuhan desired: intelligence, athleticism, wealth, good looks, and an arrogant demeanor. When they ended up in the same class for a school year, Yuhan became even more determined to befriend him. Despite Yuhan's efforts, Seo An consistently ignored him, both physically and emotionally. Strangely, this only fueled Yuhan's interest in him. Makes me wonder if your boyfriend is the same type, Yuhan. One day during PE class, when they were changing clothes, Yuhan noticed bruises on Seo An's legs. Curiosity sparked within him, and he gently tugged on Seo An's arm, expressing concern and offering to walk with him to the nurse's office. However, Seo An took offense to Yuhan's gesture and forcefully slapped his hand away. With an angry expression, Seo An commanded Yuhan to stay away from him and refrain from speaking to him. Seo An walked away, leaving Yuhan frozen in disbelief. Then, Yuhan realized Seo An intended to hide those bruises, and Yuhan had inadvertently exposed them. Undeterred by Seo An's reaction, Yuhan innocently rushed home to fetch ointment and bandages. The next day, he approached Seo An and offered them to him. In response, Seo An swiftly struck Yuhan in the face, knocking him down. Looking down at the fallen Yuhan, Seo An reiterated his demand to be left alone and not be approached. Seo An, if only you knew kindness back then, you wouldn't have thought these bad thoughts. Things would have been different. This was the first time Yuhan had experienced getting hit, and it really hurt him. He retaliated by hitting Seo An back, triggering a fight. Naturally, they were called to the teacher's office, and their parents were notified by the school. Yuhan's parents were present and scolded him for his actions. Despite feeling bummed by this, Yuhan couldn't help but notice Seo An's situation. The person standing beside Seo An didn't look like him at all. Yuhan knew that Seo An only had a secretary, and his parents were absent. Observing Seo An's expression, Yuhan could see that although he appeared nonchalant, he was trembling as if his life were at stake. Seo An humbly bowed and apologized to Yuhan, taking responsibility for instigating the fight. Yuhan was taken aback by this unexpected act of apology from Seo An. Afterward, they maintained a cold silence between them. However, Yuhan couldn't forget Seo An's frightened expression. It only took him a week before he mustered the courage to approach Seo An again. Yuhan, you're so determined. He has such a kind heart. No wonder Seo An and him are still friends. One day, when they found themselves alone in a hallway, Yuhan summoned all the confidence from his body and called out Seo An's name. He explained that his previous attempts to reach out to Seo An were genuine acts of concern, motivated by his desire to help with the bruises. He clarified that he never intended to mock Seo An and apologized if it came across that way. Their conversation ended there, and the cold silence persisted even after they graduated from elementary school. However, in middle school, Seo An underwent a complete transformation, as if he were a different person. He became more approachable and easily formed friendships with other students. Definitely his dad's doing. Yuhan gathered information about Seo An's family situation through his own assumptions and observations. Although Seo An didn't openly share much, their long-standing friendship allowed Yuhan to deduce that Seo An's biggest fear stemmed from his family excluding his little sister. This means only Woowon is trusted by Seo An to know details about his relationship with his family. Woowon began to question whether it was appropriate for him to know intimate details about them. Sensing Woowon's uncertainty, Yuhan smiled and encouraged him to be persistent in their relationship. Subtly, Yuhan hinted to Woowon that he should also make a move on Seo An, like getting to know him more. Cupid, thank you for arriving. Woo-han also offered Woowon a piece of advice, which is to not settle for less and just say he's okay with everything, because he'll be convincing everyone around him and himself that things are fine when it's not. Take this advice too. You can't control everything, so focus on the things that you can control, like yourself. So for Woowon, if he wants to be closer to Seo An, he needs to be assertive. You don't want what-if thoughts that would keep you awake at night, boy. As they both realized that lunchtime had come to an end, Woo-han bid farewell to Woowon. He suggested that the three of them should meet up and spend time together in the future. Woowon agreed to the idea. While changing, Woowon's phone buzzed with a text message informing him that he was required for another photo shoot with Woo-han within the next 2 weeks. Woowon agreed to the request. Speaking of Woo-han, Woowon couldn't help but think about what he shared during that break. He wouldn't have known a lot of that information about Seo An if it weren't for Woo-han. Woowon is aware that he never asked Seo An anything before. He only knew Seo An based on what he had seen himself. Woowon mulls over Woo-han's claims to be that person's type since he is pretty. This realization gnawed at Woowon's thoughts, leaving him unsettled. Just as Woowon was lost in his own thoughts and spiraling into overthinking, his phone vibrated, displaying Seo An's name on the caller ID. A blush crept onto Woowon's face upon seeing Seo An's name. His dazed face was replaced by a really happy expression. Seo An asked Woowon through text if the part-time job was done already. Woowon replied that it was done and that he's trying a lot of new things because of Seo An. Seo An laughed and asked if Woowon was at his bar job already. Woowon said he was and then proceeded to be bold and asked Seo An what he was doing at the moment. Woowon could not believe he was doing this. His heart skipped a beat, and all he could hear were the pulses behind his ears. He's trying to calm himself down, but to no avail. He really has a crush on him, and it shows. Hey. Woowon was smiling at their little exchange. He almost forgot he had work to do, so Woowon had to tell Seo An that he had to contact him later. Seo An was pissed and threw his phone on the couch. He can't believe Myung-woo would separate them like that. Even if Myung-woo doesn't know you two were texting. Seo An, you hopeless romantic. Just as Seo An got separated from his phone, someone called him. Woo-han opens up to Seo An that he just made his and Woowon's relationship a lot deeper. Seo An, understandably, didn't understand what he meant. Woo-han had to cut to the chase and immediately went with what Seo An needed to hear today, and that Lee Ja-hoon was back. Woo-han knew he never left South Korea, even though a lot of people assumed he was abroad to stop causing problems. Seo An said he didn't remember him. That face says otherwise. Seo An. Woo-han knows he's lying, but he expressed that as long as Seo An doesn't care, everything should be fine. Seo An is more pissed now, because he thought he saw Ja-hoon on the streets. Woowon had to witness him break down again. So he's the bad memory. Should we prepare the pitchforks? Seo An. Was he the one to set up the attack? Just as they were about to proceed with the trash talking, Seo An got a text message from Seojin, his brother. Seo An told Woo-han that he was hanging up and proceeded to read his brother's text message. Looks like his parents want them to have a family dinner soon. He sent the time and place to meet for it. Seo An is not happy with this. Last time this happened with just his father, he was already a mess. This can't be good. It was mid-morning, and Woowon took a break outside the pizza shop where he worked. The warmth of the sunlight embraced him as he found a spot to rest. His co-worker, the one who had offered him the job as a delivery man, approached him and offered him cigarettes. Woowon politely declined. Curiosity filled the air as she asked Woowon if there were any updates on his previous place, which had been involved with scammers. Woowon informed her that the police were still investigating the case, hoping for a resolution soon. Karma, where are you? She then inquired if Woowon was still staying with Minsa. Woowon shared that he was currently staying at someone else's place, experiencing a change in his living situation. Playfully, she teased Woowon about his lack of friends aside from her and Minsa. A faint blush colored Woowon's cheeks as he thought about introducing Seo An to his circle of friends, mentioning that she hadn't met him yet. Concerned, she asked if Woowon had spoken to his mom about his current situation lately. Woowon's voice carried a tinge of sadness as he admitted that he hadn't updated his mom, not wanting to burden her with worries. In a friendly gesture, his co-worker playfully smacked his back and scolded him, urging him to share his struggles with his mom and not leave her out of the picture. Hey, this is a reminder to call your mom or your dad too. As night fell, Seo An took another leisurely stroll. The moonlight illuminated his path as he spoke on the phone. Seo An mentioned to the person on the other end that he was heading to the family dinner, suspecting that it might be related to Seojin's wedding. The caller on the other end expressed how the family dinner might make them look like a healthy family. If this isn't Seojin, Woo-han, Hee-in, or Woowon, it must be someone else in the family. You have an idea who? Seo An hung up the phone, his face glowing with a smile from the conversation. A pleasant mood enveloped him as he noticed Woowon walking on the other side of the road. Seo An couldn't resist the urge to approach him, his heart brimming with warmth and affection. Seo An had to approach him. He sneaked all that way to surprise Woowon from the back and probably gave him a light touch to make the delivery man notice him. As Woowon turned around and caught sight of Seo An's beaming face up close, a surge of happiness washed over him, filling his heart with an indescribable warmth. His pulse quickened, and a delightful fluttering sensation danced within him like a flurry of butterflies taking flight. At that moment, their faces mere inches apart, Woowon felt a delightful mix of joy and nervousness intertwining within him. Seo An was oblivious as to why Woowon was a blushing mess. "Seo An, are you used to him being this red? Look at him." Woowon, on the other hand, found himself stumbling over his words as he nervously presented Seo An with free drinks their manager had given them at work. Among the beverages available, there was both iced tea and iced coffee. Initially, Woowon offered Seo An the iced coffee, but a sudden realization struck him. He remembered that coffee might not be suitable for Seo An's episodes. Taking quick initiative, Woowon swiftly retrieved an iced tea and gently placed it into Seo An's hand. "Smooth. I wish Seo An knew that." As they continued to walk home, Woowon's thoughts consumed his mind again. He couldn't help but blush and feel an overwhelming sense of happiness in Seo An's presence. The mere presence of Seo An beside him made Woowon's heart flutter with joy and excitement. What is going on with him? He's particularly sensitive to Seo An's gestures today, and I am living for this. However, their peaceful walk was interrupted. Again, can't they just have a peaceful walk for once? Someone had called Seo An, and it was someone Seo An actually knew. Seo An refers to this person as Kim Min-hyun, and it looks like this person is crying just by looking at Seo An. I mean, I would cry too. He is cute. Kim Min-hyun suddenly went for a hug and wrapped his arms around Seo An. This caused both him and Woowon to be equally surprised. Min-hyun seemed unaware of Woowon's presence and began crying loudly, expressing his misery since the breakup with Seo An. Seo An appeared indifferent and somewhat annoyed by the interruption. He apologized to Min-hyun, explaining that he was disturbing their time together with his friend. "Huh, yeah, friend." Min-hyun questioned whether Woowon was Seo An's new boyfriend and criticized Seo An for seemingly pursuing beautiful faces without considering their personality. "Hey, this may be a self-report on your part, but Woowon is definitely a different case." Seo An, determined to separate Woowon from Min-hyun, physically turned him around so that his back faced Woowon. Seo An silently mouthed to Woowon that he would be back soon, as he needed to address matters with Min-hyun first. As Seo An talked with Min-hyun, Woowon couldn't help but notice Seo An's preference for pretty people. "Woowon, if only you knew what Seo An thinks of you. You have etched a mark on this man's mind." After their discussion, Seo An sincerely apologized to Woowon for the unexpected encounter with Min-hyun. Woowon reassured Seo An that such things happen. Following that small talk, an air of tension and awkwardness enveloped them. Woowon couldn't shake off the image of Min-hyun hugging Seo An and eventually gathered the courage to inquire whether Min-hyun was Seo An's ex-boyfriend. Seo An curses in his head. Look at his face. Huh. He only dated Min-hyun for a short time, and the breakup happened a year ago. He couldn't believe out of all the people to bump into, it had to be him. However, despite the situation, Seo An needed to explain everything to Woowon. He understood that this new information might have made Woowon feel uneasy. Woowon was incredibly stuttery, feeling his face flush with embarrassment. He couldn't bring himself to look at Seo An this time. With a squeaky voice, he tried to assure Seo An that he wasn't uncomfortable. "Woowon being a nervous wreck around Seo An is what I live for." Seo An is oblivious to Woowon's feelings and thinks he's acting like this because he's not fine with it. For Woowon, it was a realization of the physical truth that Seo An was attracted to men, just as Yoo-han had tried to convey to him earlier. Communication is key. People. Curious, Woowon asked if things had ended well between Seo An and Min-hyun. Seo An recalled how Min-hyun had complained about him being selfish and always wanting things his way. Although Seo An didn't consider it a good ending to their relationship, they were still on good enough terms to greet each other when they crossed paths. Seo An blamed himself for the pattern of his relationships ending in such a manner. Due to a lack of communication, he was resorting to control and not trusting his former partners. This worsened as they showed him affection because he believed he was just a burden to them. They would often wonder if Seo An truly loved them. Changing the subject, Seo An asked Woowon if he preferred long-term relationships. Woowon confessed that his relationships didn't last long due to the demands of his work. In finding comfort with each other, they realized they both had experiences of being dumped in the end. Two peas in a pod. They're definitely made for each other. Seo An informed Woowon that he would return home late on Thursday as he had some family matters to attend to. Woowon felt a sense of unease and heaviness in his heart upon hearing this news, especially after Yoo-han's recent revelations and recalling the snippets Seo An had mentioned about his family in the past. He understood the gravity of the situation but found himself at a loss for words. All he could say was that he hoped everything would go well. "You and me both, buddy." It was the night of the family dinner, set in a fancy and extravagant atmosphere. Seo An's parents, his older brother, and his younger sister were present. Seo An's father dominated the conversation at the dinner table, expressing his decision to assign Seo An to handle the overseas branch. However, he seemed skeptical about Seo An's capabilities lately. Seo An's father emphasized the crucial nature of Seo An's future position. Seo An responded with a hollow and lifeless reply that he acknowledged his father's wish. Seo An's mother inquired about Seojin's progress with wedding plans. Seojin, exuding confidence and lacking the tiredness evident in Seo An, formally stated that he and his fiancée had just arrived from the US and had recently begun planning. Seojin bore a striking resemblance to Seo An, but without the burden of under-eye bags and having all smiles on his face. He shifted his attention to their younger sister, Jinyu, and asked her if she was still involved with her band. Jinyu is beautiful and looks very delicate compared to her brothers. She does have a lot more personality than them, though. Their mother interjected, revealing that Jinyu was merely indulging in her make-believe band performances and not pursuing anything meaningful with her life, unlike herself at Jinyu's age. Jinyu abruptly stopped eating, voicing her frustration and reminding everyone at the table of their word to stop meddling in her affairs until she graduated from school. Seo An attempted to defend his sister by asserting that she excelled academically, fulfilling her role within the family. Seojin then redirected his focus to Seo An, inquiring about his current endeavors. Their father swiftly intervened, instructing Seojin to refrain from engaging with Seo An since any conversation would be useless. "Come on, man, that is no way of dealing with your kid. You make up your own problems by putting so much expectations on them." An uncomfortable atmosphere settled over the table, thick with tension. Eventually, Jinyu slammed her hands on the table and stood up. Expressing her annoyance, she proclaimed that everyone was annoying. Jinyu tells them she wished she never came since she knew all conversations would inevitably lead to this. "Let's go, queen." "Wait, but this can't be good, right? Jinyu acting like this during a family dinner might result in something bad. Seo An seems to be fond of his sister. Will he protect her if something happens?"